Fink, and I'm an English and history teacher at Mighty Academy. February 16th, 2014 is a day that feels like yesterday. I went to school early that day so that I could get a little extra work done, and I watched the rain as it fell outside the window, and I jumped because my mom called me, and she asked me, are you sitting down? What's wrong? I responded nervously. Just, are you sitting down? She said. You're scaring me, Mom. I responded as I just kind of leaned against the wall, not realizing I really did need to sit down for what I was about to hear. Chase took his life this morning. I'll never forget hearing those words. I felt everything and nothing at the same time. He was my best friend and boyfriend of 3 years. And I thought, this can't be real. And I was in utter disbelief. And I thought maybe it's like Lazarus and God's gonna use this and he's gonna bring him back. But that day never came. And just dealing with that shock and disbelief, I went to church that week, and the worship pastor read from Psalm 73. And starting in verse 13, it says, "All in vain have I kept my heart clean and washed my hands in innocence. For all the day long I have been stricken and rebuked every morning. If I had said, I will speak thus, I would have betrayed the generation of your youth. But when I thought how to understand this, it seemed a wearisome task to me until I went into the sanctuary of God and discerned their end." He explained how the psalmist was being torn down by his enemies and how he felt betrayed by his own people. And when someone chooses to take their life, it very much feels like you've been betrayed and abandoned. And it may never make sense. Yet in verse 16, Asaph says, "When I thought how to understand this, it seemed a wearisome task until I went to the sanctuary of God and discerned their end." Suffering doesn't often make a whole lot of sense. I still don't know how my friend was able to take his own life. And I don't know why my friends and family and I suffered in that way. But God does offer comfort in the midst of these losses. After saying that none of the suffering makes sense, Asaph says that it made sense when he went into the sanctuary of God and discerned their end. Suffering doesn't tend to make a whole lot of sense, and it doesn't have any purpose until we enter God's presence. As I was still asking myself the whys and what ifs of how this could have happened, the worship pastor continued to say that God doesn't often give us the answer to why things happen, and he doesn't tell us what we could have done differently. But he does give us the answer to the question we should be asking, and that's, who is he in this? You see, it's only in God's presence and because of his compassion that horrible tragedies can be any kind of good. So who is God when I lost my friend? Without a doubt, I knew God was good, but I wasn't really sure what that meant in that moment. And God has allowed there to be a lot of healing since then, and he's used my story to help friends out of that dark place where they want to take their own life. And he's even used it in my own life. If you have been one of the ones who has thought about or attempted to take their own life, I want you to know that you do matter, that God does love you, and that we will notice if you're gone. If you have lost someone to suicide, I want you to know that it has never been, and it will never be your fault. It's easy to allow yourself to think about what you could have done different or how somehow it all falls on your shoulders, but that's not the case. That responsibility has never been on you. So what are we supposed to do when we encounter tragedies like suicide? The first thing is to be there for people who are struggling, who feel like there's no hope and that no one cares and that the world would be better without them. The second thing is to grieve as a community, The temptation when we lose people is to shut down and shut everyone out. My challenge for you is to grieve together. My last challenge for you is, if you have been a suicide survivor or someone who has lost a loved one that way, is to invest in life. Choose a walk for life. Sponsor a child or a village in another country. And even volunteer for your local teen center. When someone chooses to take their own life, we're forced to stand face to face with death. But we also have the option then to spend every opportunity remembering that God has given us an opportunity for life, and that it's our choice to continue to choose it. And the only way we can make sense of this life is by continuing to be in the sanctuary of God and in His presence.